Got it. Yeah, I'm Mykel Board too, and my connection is the great city of Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, where I spent 6 weeks last year because for probably 10 years I've never written a novel. I've written a couple books. I've written monthly features for magazines and blogs and for punk rock stuff. But I've never written a novel, and I had for 10 years an idea in my mind about Punxsutawney because nobody thinks of that city except for one day a year. So if I were a criminal that needed to escape from the cops, where, except for February 2nd, where would the last place in the world be that people would think of? Yes, exactly right, Punxsutawney. So I wanted to go to scope out the place to get a feel for the city and the people that lived there and to start writing this thing. And when I was there, I was just so lucky. I loved the city. I met so many people in such a short time. I made so many friends. I saw so many characters that I just really fell in love with the place. And so I'm still writing, but I can't get down to the book outside of Punxsutawney. I don't know why. But I can't update. I can't flesh it out. I got to go back. Originally this year, I hope I still can do it. I was going to go in the fall to finish the book, or at least finish the first draft. But I hope it can still happen. If Ms. Corona comes back, maybe not. Otherwise, I will be there.
Sounds good. While you was in Punxsutawney the last time, you ran into a group called the Stained Glass Writers, and you showed up at one of their meetings. Tell me about that.
Oh, that was great. I went to, I love, besides, I guess the two buildings or the two edifices that I like the most are libraries and bars. So I often wrote in the Punxsutawney Library, very friendly library with extremely helpful people. And I asked, is there a writers group in Punxsutawney? And Jane, the chief, not Jane, I forgot her name even. It's in the book. The chief librarian there, who's got an extremely sexy, raspy voice, like a whiskey and cigarettes voice. She told me about the writers group, and she gave me Jane's email address, and I said, I would really like to come to the next meeting, and it worked out there was a meeting while I was there. So I went to the writers group meeting, lots of interesting people, and incredibly good writing. I was pleasantly surprised. Living in New York, we unfortunately adopt there's New Yorkers, there are West Coast, maybe Los Angeles people, and then there are hillbillies. And to see that's so wrong, and that there's such creative people everywhere, now I'm guessing, that and people were very friendly to me. A couple people were a little bit uncomfortable because my writing tends to be, how can I say it, graphic. So some people were a little uncomfortable, but okay, I tried to explain myself that I'm writing about New Yorkers who are graphic people in the Punxsutawney setting. But for the main part, there were all different kinds of people, and there were, I really loved the atmosphere of non-competitive. of the supportive atmosphere, that people were supporting each other in what they were doing instead of trying to one-up each other. I belong to several writers groups, and they all except for, I have one group now, haiku writers group, that is really constructive criticism, but thoughtful. The other writers groups I've been in have been just like fighting for first position. And so I was so pleased to see the way people interacted in Punxsutawney, and just the general feeling there was wonderful.
Well, there was a writers group set up in Brookville, which is a town nearby, called Writers Block Party. And their whole goal is to be supporting other writers in the region. And Jane sort of modeled the Stained Glass Writers group after the Writers Block Party. She called the person who founded the Writers Block Party, says, well, what did you do to get this group started? And that's what they did to get the Punxsutawney Stained Glass, and they kept the same idea of just the goal is to support other writers, to encourage them to get their work out there. And they've been very good at that. Around here, all this coronavirus hasn't really affected us very much. We can't go out to the restaurants and see our friends, but it hasn't been an upheaval of our life, really. You know, some of the writers who are more reclusive say it hasn't affected them much at all. And
yes, I've heard that occasionally. Even in New York, I've heard, what's the big deal? It's just like I always live.
And so I imagine your experience in the city's a little bit different, and especially now that there's been some unrest related to the death of George Floyd. How's all this?
It's crazy. It's like this year is cursed. And my neighborhood has had several protests go through it, because I live on Broadway. I mean, not my address isn't Broadway, but I look out my window and see Broadway. And there have been a lot of protests outside. I went to visit and see what they were like. And I was really happily surprised at the discipline and the lack of anger among the people there. At night, something happens. And you've probably seen images of boarded up stores and boarded up windows in New York. I need to explain that most of those places were not looting victims. They were boarded up as protection. And some places were looting, and I think people took the opportunity of the chaos and of the police being elsewhere to help themselves to some mostly luxury goods that I expect will be on eBay next week. But for me, it's very annoying because I'm a social guy. I like to go out. I like to meet with people. And already, because of Corona, people had this fear of other people. Socially distance yourself. And then this, on top of it, with a curfew at 8 o'clock, made people more afraid. And for me, it's very difficult because I have 4 friends in New York City. There's 8 million people in New York City, and I have 4 friends who are not afraid to meet physically, personally. Luckily, 2 of those 4 friends are extremely good cooks.
Well, we're moving out of lockdown stuff. Businesses are opening here. People have to wear masks to go into stores. But a lot of restaurants are opening. You wear your mask through the lobby, but you can take it off when you sit down to eat. And I don't know, I'm still somewhat uncomfortable with it because the cases are still going up here. They're low, but they're still going up, which is bothersome, especially since I'm like 64 and have some breathing problems.
I got you beat. I got you beat. I transitioned from elderly to old this year, crazy year. But I'm not so afraid, and I know the cases will go. I don't know. I believe if you keep the isolation for 10 days, 10 months, 10 years, whenever you end it, the number of cases will go up. Anytime, they'll just go up. I think it's just part of nature.
Well,
go ahead.
The idea is to have the cases go up at a rate that the hospitals can handle.
You're right. That's important, that the hospitals are not flooded before they open. In New York, already several of the emergency hospitals have closed, and they're gone. The one in Central Park, the one in, I think it was in the Yankee Stadium parking lot or something like that, and there were these refrigerated body trucks outside of hospitals that stacked up dead people to keep on ice until they had places for them. Those are all gone. So you're right. The key point is to have room to take care of it. But I think that as far as a spike is concerned, that's going to happen anytime they open.
Have you written anything related to the COVID or the protests or anything like that? Has that affected your writing in content or?
Yes, it has. I mean, I've written already several blog pieces about not so much about the disease, but about the feeling and the terror surrounding the disease. And the next blog piece will be on or related to the protests and the general tension of and the need for sacrifices. We've got to solve a problem. We have a sacrifice, and I think that's coming. But unfortunately, most of my writing gets now these days, except for the blog, which I've been able to maintain, gets wasted on Facebook. It's another Facebook entry. Every day I go for a long walk and see how many people are masked, how many people are not masked, how many people are on the street. Hold on just a minute. That's my mask.
Yes, and it probably keeps people away from you.
So, in the beginning anyway, that's what I walked around with, and to make a light touch of the horror in general, and also because people wanted a mask, so my idea was, okay, you want a mask? We should wear masks. Here's my mask. And some people got it, some people didn't get it. And I was looking also for an ethnic group, like who wears masks and who doesn't wear masks, and what's reaction, who gets it and who doesn't get it. And there seems to be two models. One group says, it is the young people, young millennials who don't wear masks because they think they're immune to the disease, and they don't really care if older people get it. And the other group says, no, it will be the outsiders. It'll be Black and Latino people who are naturally rebellious because they're treated so bad by the society. They're naturally rebellious, and they're not going to wear the masks. And I went out to find out myself with that mask and see if there's a demographic of mask wearers or non-mask wearers, and I couldn't find one. All different groups. Some people wore, some people didn't wear. Some people wore them as jewelry under their chin or hanging from a wrist. You can hear a New York symphony outside. And some people wore them covering their mouth and nose, and some people didn't wear them. And I couldn't find a demographic except the only 100% mask wearers were people our age or older on walkers. 100% wore a mask. Except for that, I couldn't find any demographic. Not on those of us who were not on walkers. Half the people didn't wear a mask at all. Very interesting for me. I don't know what it means. I guess the basic lesson is you can't judge, you can't predict. People act individually. Go ahead.
There's most of the stores here require to have a mask on if you go inside, but outside of the stores, it's probably half of the people don't wear masks, and half of them do. And you're saying about your protest going by your store, well, there's actually a little protest in Du Bois, which is about the size of Punxsutawney, scheduled for tomorrow. I'm going to go video it.
I've been to Du Bois, actually, because I was in Punxsutawney during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, two important Jewish holidays. And there's no synagogue anymore in Punxsutawney. The closest one is in Du Bois. And so there's one Jewish family in Punxsutawney, evidently, and so they drove me to Du Bois. So I know the town a little bit.
Well, you've been...
Do you know where the synagogue is?
Actually, I don't, but it's not a very big town. I'm sure I can find it pretty easy.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. It seems to be sort of central. It's not a big building. You tell me, or tell me what you're interested in and your focus. If you want to talk about the writing process or other writers, I'd be happy to talk about most anything.
Well, I got this idea that a number of the writers in our group some of them weren't handling being locked down very well, and some of them were basically not affected. And I thought, well, it'd be interesting to see what their comments were about what was going on and how they've been affected or haven't been affected by the lockdown. And then this all started before the protests. And so I called up some people and posted in our Facebook group, hey, do you want to be interviewed for this? Talk about how you're being affected by the coronavirus and this lockdown. And then they had a virtual stained glass writers meeting, and I told the people there that as well, because I'm usually with the other group, but I participate sporadically in the other group, and said, hey, do you want to be interviewed as part of this project? We'll edit it together and put it on YouTube, and I'll share it with you, and we can just see how each of us are doing, or each of us are handling it. And so I did that, and she suggested you, and must have contacted you as well, because you're an animated talker, and you're from a big city, and so I thought it'd be a little different perspective than these country folk around here. And so I've been interviewing people and asking them what they think about it and how it's affected them. And so that's basically what I'm interested in. You, what's your writing process? How has it been affected?
So I think I was going to ask you if you have a consensus of other people, because logic, again, it was a false prediction. just like my prediction of mask wearers was a false prediction, you would expect lockdown would be helpful because you have nothing else to do. You have more time to write, more time to concentrate. But the reality is, fortunately, I have a deadline for the blog. So I'm still meeting the deadline. But my other writing, I'm just wasting time on Facebook. I'm answering other people. I'm cleaning one corner of my apartment and moving things away, and then I'm cleaning the area that I move things to and moving them back to their original places. So I found myself a lot less productive as far as writing is concerned than I expected to, or than I am normally. I think stress has a lot to do with it. It's just, when you can't, New York is usually a 24-hour city. So, okay, I need to go out and buy something at the grocery store, I go out. And with the lockdown now, with the 8 o'clock curfew, the 24-hour stores are closed at 8 o'clock. And I can't do anything later. And I also am afraid of what do they call it? The quarantine 15? You know that?
No, what's that?
It's supposedly the average person who stays at home gains 15 pounds. Has gained 15 pounds during this quarantine for lack of exercise and nervous eating. I haven't gotten it, but I go out every day, and much more. I much more walk now than I did before the lockdown. I walk and visit my friends. Sometimes, I have 2 rivers to visit. And I spend more time outside now than I did before the quarantine.
Well, as for a consensus of the writers I talked to, which has only been about a dozen, one girl says she's got a lot more writing done since the quarantine, and most of the rest say they haven't been affected or have gotten less done.
Okay. So I rarely think of myself as part of the majority, but it looks like that is a consensus. How about you?
Me personally, I was in the middle of editing a video project when the lockdown occurred here, and I worked my way through that, got the documentary out, and then I was feeling kind of down and not motivated for a few weeks there. And then the last couple weeks I've started taking an online class and have been working on my writing and shooting more video and stuff. And so I've gotten moving again, but there's a period there in the middle where I was just down and I couldn't seem to concentrate. Things didn't feel like they're moving forward. There wasn't anything happening, and I was just sort of stuck there. But
yeah, that's interesting because I still feel that. Go ahead. But you work in video a lot. You're like both writing and videoing. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of retired, and I always shot video, and I've been doing a lot more. I've produced like 3 or 4 feature-length documentaries, and
great.
And I'm on the board of directors of a non-profit writing group here in Du Bois, and member a couple of the writing groups. And to a degree, I feel a little out of place in the one writing group I participate in the most, because most of them write poetry, and I don't write poetry. They either write poetry or these little snatches of their personal life or slice of life type stuff. And that's not what I do. I write little short stories, fantasy, science fiction, mostly stuff like that. and I'm the only
Oh,
one.
that's it.
I'm the only one that
That's
does.
interesting because there was a science fiction writer in the stained glass group also.
There's a
One
Rachel.
of the guys.
There's a Rachel Robinson, a girl who writes some science fiction in the group too, and I don't know about the other people. I've not really talked to them that much.
There's one guy who's a poet, very good poet, in the group, and then there's one science fiction. Then there's some people who write as a kind of, which also I admire. I don't do, but I admire, write as a kind of exercise. So I just hold on again. Also. I just finished this novel called The Heart. I didn't finish writing it. I finished reading it. And it is extremely well written. It's like a beautiful gift packaging with wrapping paper on it and fancy compartments for each thing, and empty. So the content is nothing. It's about a heart transplant. But the writing is so good. And that's not a bad thing. You just have to appreciate it for what it is. But I think some people just write. And I think also it's a great exercise to write about anything and just put words down. For me, the process, I've said, it's almost like my cliche. I've said this so many times. For me, the process of writing is like taking a shit when you're constipated and then making sculpture out of the shit. The hardest part is to get it out first. Then the real joy in writing is the sculpting. The real joy in writing is rewriting, touching up, fixing things, making things run smoothly. Getting it out is, I got to do that. Oh, my God. That's the tough part for me. So go ahead.
In the documentary videos I do, I actually enjoy the research at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
And then I go through and I shoot all this material. And it's kind of stressful because I've got to make sure I've got what I need. I've got to have coverage and all that. But the hardest part is probably the editing. But the editing's where I feel you put in your creativity and you pull the story out of all the little pieces. It's kind of like...
It's the same thing, exactly right.
As editing your stories, That's where the story and the films come together, is in the editing.
Yes, you're exactly right, and it's exactly the same thing. The research, my trip to Punxsutawney, like I said, was just great. It's one of the... I travel a lot. I've been to 71 countries. But nothing was really like the 6 weeks in Punxsutawney, or maybe it was a month, because I was visiting my sister in South Carolina before that. But in any case, that time I spent here where I was focused, I could write, and then I was meeting all these great people. I was meeting the characters in the book. And that's equivalent to your research beforehand. And then the actual writing, that was tough, but I could do it. And then the rewriting will be so great. That's what I hope I can do this year, is go back and just tie up the ends and get a first draft of this book. But your experience seems to be very similar to your experience. Editing is similar to mine, and I hope you'll be sending me email with links to other things that you've done so I could take a look at it.
I will. At this point, I don't really know what else to ask you. I don't know how long this is going to be when I edit it together. I envisioned a shorter piece, but a lot of people are saying stuff that's really interesting, and I hate to cut it out, but then I can't get it too long or people won't watch it, and it's going to be quite a
yeah, I understand. I've been in documentary movies before where the people come here and then shoot the apartment and take A-roll and B-roll. I don't even know what A-roll and B-roll is, but they take a A-roll of this and a B-roll of this and and it comes down to 45 seconds in the movie.
Well, the A-roll is the main shot that you're trying to get, and B-roll is you shoot other things in the room to cover up cuts or things that are messed up in the A-roll.
Oh, okay.
To fill in.
Thank you for.
They're sort of like patches for things. So you shoot lots of B-roll, and it helps a lot in the editing. And the A-roll is the main thing, and so it's all pretty straightforward. It's just they developed their own terminology, which makes it more obscure to people who aren't part of the business.
Yeah. Thank you for that education. That's I didn't really understand that, but you're right. It's exactly what they said. Oh, let's shoot this for the B-roll. Let's shoot this for the B-roll. So
you have to make plans to shoot the B-roll. You know, it's just not something. Sometimes there's something really cool and you just grab it, and those are called pickup shots. But B-roll is planned shots of miscellaneous items that you can use to patch over other parts of it. And they've got terms like a clothespin. They call them C-47s in the film industries. And it's just a clothespin, a spring clothespin. And there's some term, I forget what it is, for a box, just a plain wooden box. They have some fancy term for that. And all they mean is like basically a crate so you can set something on top of it or someone can stand on it. But they've got a fancy name for that too. And
okay. Go ahead.
I've not gone to film school. I'm a geologist by training. But I read a lot, and I've shot a lot of stuff. But just
a geologist. I guess there's a lot in your area of Pennsylvania. There must be a lot of geologists because there's so many things in the ground.
Well, not really. One geologist can crank out a whole bunch of permit applications and analysis quite a bit, so you don't need that many of them. And I basically studied caves and karst systems in the tropics.
Oh, okay.
So
it doesn't help with coal very much.
Well, I've worked both preparing coal mine permits and reviewing them for the state, so I've done both ends of the coal mine stuff as well.
So, for me, that was also one of the fascinating things because I had no idea. I don't know what a coal mine looks like. I don't know what I don't know anything about it except it's stuff you dig and people get black lung disease and people bring it up from the ground and in Punxsutawney it's all over the place. I was another fascinating, completely new thing for me, new adventure. And you know they have these, what is it called? Maybe you have them in Du Bois also. The rails to trails.
Yes, they have them all over here.
And they're great. And they pass by some old coal mining or coal oven heaps and that have been slightly restored. And I just like to go walk there and sit and take pictures of those places. They were just amazing. I never saw anything like that before.
Well, this is the kind of stuff that if you're local, you grow up with and don't think anything about it, when people come and visit, oh, that's something really cool, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. I can understand too, because it's like when people come and visit me, stuff that is just, okay, you know, that's what people do here in New York, or that sort of, and then, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, I never noticed that before. So, yes, it's the same thing that happens, and that's one of the reasons I love traveling, because it's always an adventure. And also one of the reasons why I was so impressed with the new stuff in Punxsutawney, stuff I haven't seen before. So an adventure. It sounds strange. Okay, this New Yorker comes. It's like the beginning of a joke. This New Yorker comes to Punxsutawney, walks into a bar in Punxsutawney, but it was just an adventure. People, it's a different life, and it's I go into a bar in Punxsutawney and everybody knows each other, and the bartender says the usual. In some bars in New York it's like that, but to get in I have to show ID, I have to take my hat off, I have to there's always a bouncer. It's one of the fascinating things to me is I asked, what do you do if there's trouble? You don't have a bouncer here. You don't have somebody to throw people out if they're belligerent. Mykal, we take care of it. Okay, that's great. It's just a wonderful thing for me.
Well, it's interesting that you like Punxsutawney because the movie Groundhog Day didn't even use the actual city of Punxsutawney in the movie.
I know that. I found that out after I went there, and it's in the book, because one of the characters in the book is a fanatic of the movie, everything about the movie, and he makes a trip from Chicago to Punxsutawney to visit the site, and somebody in Punxsutawney tells him, this was filmed right near Chicago. This is not here, and he's crushed by that, and that it develops from there. But yeah, I know that it's not. But the characters in the book don't know that, and characters in the book know that nobody thinks about that town except for one day a year, so it's a safe place for all different reasons.
I guess I'll let you go and talk
Okay.
again. It's been fun.
Great, and thank you for, like I said, I really admire you for going through all of this stuff to get there. I missed a wedding on Zoom. My niece got married on Zoom, and I tried to sign in, and I had so much difficulty that I really just didn't like it. So thank you for accommodating me.
Sure.
And you'll send me email and give me some links to some other things you've done. All right. Take care, and I will probably talk to you again, maybe by telephone or maybe in person if I show up this fall, like I still hope I can.